Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive where we take the sources you send us and, we dive deep to bring you the most interesting and important parts.
Yeah, exactly. So this time we've got something pretty unique, and it's all about the album Yamana Hoxiwata, Echoes of the Southern Wind.
Echoes of the Southern Wind. Okay.
Yeah, and its connection to a place called the Scotia Arc. Have you heard the Scotia Arc?
I have, yeah. It's not exactly a household name, is it? But
Yeah.
it's a fascinating region, and we've got some excerpts from the TATANKA website to help us unpack all this, an article, and then kind of a related story.
Right, and what's really cool is that it's this amazing mix of indigenous traditions, right? We're talking like really deep cultural roots, and then you've got these incredible ambient soundscapes, and then on top of that, they're using AI innovation to kind of bring these like unheard voices to the surface.
It's a wild combination, right? Ancient traditions, cutting edge tech, and all focused on this region, the Scotia Arc, that most people probably couldn't even point to on a map. So that's kind of our mission today, right? To explore how this album is using this really unique blend to bring the history, the culture, even the environment of this place back to life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's really fascinating is how it all comes together.
Yeah.
This intersection of the ancient and the modern. It's really something.
Okay, so let's start with the place itself, the Scotia Arc.
Right.
For those of us who haven't spent a lot of time down in the Southern Ocean, what is it? Where is it? And why is it so significant?
So geographically, it's this incredible natural corridor. It's
Mm.
like this chain of islands and underwater ridges that basically connects South America all the way down to Antarctica.
Okay, so it's like a bridge between the continents.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's not just a geographical bridge. It's also this incredibly important cultural touchstone for the indigenous peoples who have lived in this region for generations. We're talking about the Yaga and the Selkla and the 𝗑𝗕ᗕ.
Right, and these are cultures that have really adapted to this extreme environment, haven't they?
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about some of the harshest conditions on the planet, and these cultures have not just survived but thrived there for centuries.
So they're obviously a huge part of what makes this region so special, but from a kind of a bigger picture perspective, why else should we care about the Scotia Arc?
Well, for one thing, it's a biodiversity hotspot. I mean,
Yeah.
the waters around these islands are teeming with life, everything from krill to whales. It's really incredible.
Wow. And I remember reading something about the Drake Passage, that stretch of water that separates South America from Antarctica, that it plays this like crucial role in regulating the Earth's climate.
That's right. The Drake Passage is this incredibly powerful force. It's like this choke point for these massy ocean currents that circulate around the globe, and it has a huge impact on weather patterns and climate all over the world.
And this whole area was formed by these powerful geological forces, right? The movement of the Scotia Plate.
Exactly. The Scotia Plate is this tectonic plate that's been pushing and pulling for millions of years, and it's created this whole arc of islands and underwater mountains. It's actually still incredibly active geologically.
Active, how so? Like earthquakes and volcanoes?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Uh-huh.
the South Sandwich Islands, for example, they're part of the Scotia Arc, and they're home to these active stratovolcanoes that rise right up out of the ocean. It's pretty wild.
Stratovolcanoes. Now that's a word you don't hear every day.
That's
So
right.
so we've talked about the Drake Passage, the South Sandwich Islands. When we talk about the Scotia Arc as a whole, what are the main island groups that make it up?
Well, starting from the South American side, you've got the Islas Diego Ramirez, which are these tiny little islands
Huh?
that are actually the southernmost point of South America.
Wow. So that's as far south as you can go without hitting Antarctica.
Pretty much, yeah. And then just a bit further east, you've got the Islas Wollaston and the Islas Hermite. And then further out into the ocean, you have South Georgia, which is a much larger island. And then, of course, the South Sandwich Islands, which we talked about.
So it's this whole chain of islands that stretches out over hundreds of miles.
Exactly. It's a pretty vast area.
And each of these islands has its own unique ecosystem, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the diversity of life in this region is just staggering, and it's all interconnected. You know, the krill feed the penguins feed the seals feed the orcas. It's this whole intricate web of life.
And that web of life is under threat, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is. I mean, climate change is having a huge impact on the Scotia Arc. The glaciers are melting, the ocean currents are shifting, and it's putting a lot of stress on these delicate ecosystems.
So this album, this Yamana Hoxiwata, it's not just about celebrating the beauty of this region. It's also about raising awareness of the challenges it's facing.
That's right. I think the creators of this album really wanted to capture both the wonder and the fragility of this place.
So before we dive into the music itself, we need to talk about the people who have called this place home for centuries, right? The Yaghan, the Selknam, the Khawaskar, because their traditions, their stories are really woven into the fabric of this album, aren't they?
They really are. I mean, their connection to this land and this sea is so profound, and it's expressed in so many ways through their music, their storytelling, their art.
So let's start with the Yaghan. They're the ones who gave Tierra del Fuego its name, right? The land of fire.
Yeah, the Yaghan were known for their incredible ability to adapt to the cold and the harsh conditions of this region. I mean, they lived in these simple shelters made of branches and seal skins, and they were constantly on the move, following the food sources.
And they were expert navigators too, weren't
Oh
they?
yeah, they knew these waters like the back of their hand. I mean, they could navigate through these treacherous channels and fjords without any modern instruments. It's really remarkable.
And they had this really close relationship with fire, didn't they? I mean, that's kind of what gave Tierra del Fuego its name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, fire was essential for their survival in this cold climate. It provided warmth. It allowed them to cook their food. It was even used in their spiritual ceremonies.
So the title of the album, Yamana Hoxiwata, it's actually a Yaghan phrase, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It translates to echoes of the southern wind.
And that really captures the essence of this region, doesn't it? The wind, the cold, the vastness.
It really does. I mean, the wind is such a powerful force in this part of the world.
Well,
It can be both beautiful and terrifying.
so let's talk about the Sulknam. They were quite different from the Yaghan, weren't they?
They were, yeah, the Selknam were nomadic hunter-gatherers who lived on the larger island of Tierra del Fuego. They roamed these vast grasslands and forests, hunting guanacos and rias.
And they were known for their body painting traditions, weren't they?
Yes, they had these elaborate rituals where they would paint their bodies with natural pigments.
Yeah.
It was part of their spiritual beliefs, and it was also a way of communicating with each other.
And their music was quite different from the Yaghan music too, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Selknam music was more rhythmic and percussive. They used a lot of drums and rattles in their ceremonies.
And then we have the Khawaskar who lived even further south, didn't they?
That's right. The 𝗑𝗕ᗕ were also nomadic seafaring people, but
Yeah.
they lived primarily in the fjords and channels of southern Chile.
And they were known for their canoes, weren't they?
Yes, they built these incredibly seaworthy canoes out of bark, and they were able to navigate through some of the most treacherous waters in the world.
So all three of these cultures, they had this deep connection to the natural world, and they express that connection through their music, their art, their stories, and that's what this album is really trying to capture, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's about bringing those voices, those stories back to life.
So let's finally talk about the music itself. What can we expect to hear when we listen to Yamana Hoxiwata?
What's a really interesting blend of ambient music and indigenous traditions. So you'll hear these kind of sweeping atmospheric soundscapes mixed with traditional instruments and chants.
And the article mentions that there's also a strong AI element to this album.
Right. They've used AI to kind of recreate and reinterpret these lost indigenous melodies. It's a really innovative approach.
So it's like they're using technology to bridge the gap between the past and the present.
Exactly. And it's really effective. I mean, you can really hear the echoes of these ancient cultures in the music.
The article mentions a few specific track titles that really stood out to me. Ecos Glaciares, which I guess translates to like glacier echoes.
Right.
And then there's a Spiritus de Viento Austral, Spirits of the Southern Wind, and then Fuego Olvidado, Forgotten Fire. Those are evocative titles, even without hearing the music.
They are, and they really give you a sense of the themes that the album is exploring. You know, the power of nature, the resilience of these indigenous cultures, the loss and the memory.
So let's talk about the AI aspect a little bit more, because that's really fascinating to me. How exactly did they use AI in this album?
Well, they used it in a few different ways. One way was to analyze these fragments of traditional music that they had, and then to use that data to create new melodies and harmonies that were inspired by the original.
So it's like the AI is learning from the past and then creating something new based on that knowledge.
Exactly. And it's not just about mimicking the old music. It's about taking those core elements, those melodies, those rhythms, and then reinterpreting them in a modern context.
And the article mentions this one track, La Danza de los Nacidos del Hielo, the Dance of the Iceborn, where they used AI to actually create these soundscapes that evoke the natural phenomena of Antarctica.
Yeah, that's a really cool track. They trained the AI on recordings of glaciers and wind and water, and then the AI was able to generate these incredible sounds. They're both beautiful and kind of eerie.
So it's like the AI is becoming a composer in its own right.
In a way, yeah, but it's still very much a collaboration with the human musicians. It's not like the AI is just taking over.
So we've talked about the place, the people, the technology, but at the heart of this whole project is this story, this really powerful story about a Yagan violinist named Amaike. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, Amake is this incredibly talented musician who grew up with these fragments of traditional Yagan songs that had been passed down through her family.
So she was carrying this legacy, this musical heritage.
She was, but she was also struggling with how to keep it alive. You know,
Yeah.
she was trained in classical violin and she was very successful in that world, but she always felt like there was this missing piece, this part of her identity that wasn't being expressed.
And that's where Orchestra Americana comes in, right?
Exactly. Orchestra Americana is this really unique project that brings together human musicians and AI musicians, and it's all about exploring new possibilities in music.
And Amaike was invited to join the orchestra.
She was. At first, she was hesitant. You know, she wasn't sure how her traditional music would fit in with this modern ensemble.
Especially with the AI element, right?
Yeah, that was a big part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
she had this fear that the technology would somehow overshadow the human element, the emotional core of the music.
But something changed, didn't it?
It did. She had this really profound experience during a rehearsal where she was playing this traditional Yagan melody, and the other musicians, both the human ones and the AI ones, they just started playing along with her, and it was like they understood the emotion, the spirit of the music.
Wow. And the article mentions this AI entity named Solana, who was specifically tasked with interpreting and reconstructing these lost Yagan compositions.
Right. Solana was this incredibly advanced AI that had been trained on all this data about Yagan music, and Solana was able to kind of fill in the gaps in Amaike's memory to help her to recreate these songs that had been almost lost.
So it was like this collaboration between the human musician and the AI musician.
It was, and it was really beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, the music that they created together, it was both ancient and modern. It was both familiar and new.
And it all culminated in this really powerful performance, didn't it?
They performed this song called Hoxiwata Yamana, which means the soul of the southern wind, and it was just incredible. The audience was completely captivated.
And for Amaike, it was more than just a performance, wasn't it? It was like a reclaiming of her heritage.
It was a way for her to connect with her ancestors, to honor their legacy, to keep their music alive.
So what can we learn from Amaike's story?
Well, I think it shows us the power of music to transcend boundaries, to bring people together, to heal old wounds.
And it also shows us the potential of technology to help us to preserve and to revitalize our cultural heritage.
Exactly. It's not about replacing human creativity. It's about augmenting it. It's about giving us new tools to tell our stories.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Yamana Hoxiwata and the Scotia arc, what are the key takeaways that you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that even in the most remote corners of the world, there are these incredible stories, these rich cultures that are waiting to be discovered.
And that music is this powerful force that can connect us to those stories, to those cultures.
Absolutely. And music has this incredible ability to transcend language, to break down barriers, to touch our hearts in a way that words often can't.
And this album is a really beautiful example of that, isn't it?
It is. It's a testament to the power of collaboration, the power of innovation, the power of music to bring us together and to remind us of what's truly important.
So if our listeners are curious to learn more about the Scotia arc, about the the Selknam, the 𝗧𝗧 𝗧𝗔𝗓, about this incredible album, where should they go?
Well, the TATANKA website is a great place to start. They have a lot of information about the album, about the artists involved, about the inspiration behind it.
And I would also encourage our listeners to just do a little bit of exploring on their own. You know, there's so much to learn about this amazing region and about the people who call it home.
Absolutely. I mean, there are books and documentaries and articles and websites. It's a really fascinating subject to dive into.
And finally, I would say that if you have the opportunity to listen to Yamana Hoxiwata do it, I mean, it's a really powerful and moving experience.
I agree. It's one of those albums that stays with you long after you've heard it.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.